There's something unique about Notre Dame, particularly with the light in the dome. I love what I do. I love to be here early in the mornings. This is a place of love. It's love of mission, it's love for one another, it's love of place. It drives us all, and you see it in the people.
From the campus of Our Lady's University, this is For Good, Stories from Notre Dame, a behind-the-scenes glimpse into life under the Golden Dome and the powerful stories that drive Notre Dame to become a force for good in the world.
Hello and welcome to For Good, Stories from Notre Dame. Today we are coming to you live from an active construction site. You can already hear some of the ambient noises in the background. If you have visited Notre Dame's campus in recent years, chances are you've encountered new buildings and landmarks, exquisite landscaping, new and renovated spaces, and many more construction projects still underway. These are all strategic pieces of the Notre Dame Campus Plan, which will guide the university's growth in the decades to come. Today, we are honored to be joined by Doug Marsh, the Vice President for Facilities Design and Operations and the Chief University Architect. Doug, thanks so much for being with us today. First of all, I have to tell you how important you are. We've done a number of these For Good episodes. This is the first time that we have For Good Stories cups, and so this is a gift for you to walk away with.
I'm touched by that. It's beautiful.
Good. It's the little things. It's the swag that always gets you. But you gave a presentation recently that took everyone by storm. You talked about the historical overview of the campus and how it's evolved, going right back to Father Soren and the origins. And to me, it was like watching you deliver a love letter to the campus. You've been here for a long time in various roles before you assumed the top leadership role, but all working on the beautification, the restoration, and the addition to campus. Tell us a little bit about your history and trajectory here in this role at Notre Dame.
Well, thank you, Lou. I have to say, reflecting back, it's been an extraordinary ride, and nobody's been more blessed than me being part of it. My roots go back to being a local kid, South Bender. Of course, fell in love with the Fighting Irish, laying on the floor of the living room every Saturday with my dad, watching the Irish on an 18-inch black and white TV, and then sort of the relationship was set from there. And I was able to come to Notre Dame in the late 1970s and graduate from our esteemed School of Architecture, and worked in private practice locally. Met my beautiful wife, Pam, and we had two lovely sons, Adam and Alex, and an opportunity came in 1995 to leave that practice and sort of come in at an entry level as a project manager as the university was starting to embark on a little more ambitious capital campaign. And so they founded a small department to help lead it. And lo and behold, I've managed to survive those eras, and just again, blessed to have the opportunity to lead an extraordinary team of individuals throughout our division, now 500 strong.
Yeah, I would tell you that he is the top university architect in the country, and we are really, really blessed to have him here. So tell us, where are we? We've never done one of these programs from a live construction site. Where are we specifically, and what is the significance of this building that you and the team are working on?
Sure. I know you called it noise, but I call it music because it's a sound of progress to me. We're in the heart of McCourtney Hall, Building 2, if you will. Literally a place that is going to continue Notre Dame's research trajectory, truly transformational moves here, because combined with the first McCourtney Hall opened in 2016, the university will have nearly 450,000 square feet of world-class wet lab research. This building will be a little bit different in terms of who it hosts, an environmental team that's focused on things like climate change and air, water, soil, think of those things, but also in genomics, also in tissue or biomedical fields. There'll be a computational scientist group working with all the research in here to make sense of all the data that they get out of what they produce. But It's a remarkable structure and is going to continue to advance Notre Dame's incredible trajectory on growing its research mission.
Yeah, Ted and Tracy McCourtney, the gift of this 450,000 square foot complex is just simply amazing. And we had a top public university visiting with their top 10 leaders, and they were blown away by this new research space and how we can be a force for good by the research that we pioneer, making a difference as you articulated. So how do you just build buildings? Do you decide we're going to plop one down here? And I remember it was over 20 years ago that you brought in an outside group to facilitate a campus master plan, which gives us the forecast, not only the short term, but the long term. Can you tell us a little bit more about that plan and how it guides you and your team? And do you notice that the really loud work only happens when I'm talking? They're conditioned to kind of be respectful of you. I'm joking. But yeah, please tell us more about the plan.
Sure. The campus plan, was really, I think, an incredible collaboration back over 20 years ago, as you know, adopted by the board in 2002 to guide decades to come. We've updated it 3 or 4 times, but in essence, it's unique among our peers who have a campus master plan that might be inches thick.
Yeah.
It has a lot of information. It's very interesting to architects and planners and engineers, but not necessarily sort of consumable for the average alum or campus constituent. Ours is intentionally brief. And the most important part of the campus plan at Notre Dame is its planning values. There's 7 tenets of planning that will guide the future of Notre Dame. And we hope our successors will continue on that tradition. No planning value more important than the sacramental vision, meaning everything we do as we think about growing the campus and stewarding what's here will be done through a sacramental lens.
Can you hit on just a couple other of the tenets, the 7 tenets that guide how you guys do your work?
This is not a place just of academy, but it is also a place of home. We have thousands and thousands of students, of course, here, but also the Holy Cross congregation, home to them. It is a place that we have faculty staying in residence halls. So we have to be mindful of that as we think about building placement and how we distribute utilities and how we maintain the grand outdoor space, which is really a hallmark of our incredible campus.
And the pedestrian nature of the campus is something you want to preserve. So you don't want to build too far out so that it's difficult. You measure the time, right, that students can walk from a residence hall to a classroom building. All of that's factored into this as well?
Absolutely. The campus plan commits us to a pedestrian-natured campus. And so we're really strategic about infill, and we've retired some older buildings and put new ones in their place so that we don't build at the edges and continue to grow the circumference of the place, but keep everything as dense and maybe even a little denser as possible, because this is an extraordinary walk between buildings.
Yeah. And you just retired the Fisher Hall dormitory, as well as right adjacent to it, Pangborn Hall, and 2 new dorms are going up in that place. But the men of Fisher, just a week ago, moved right next door to this building to the new Graham Family Hall. Talk to us a little bit about the residential component of the strategic plan and how have dorms changed over the years? How do you think, in working with student affairs, how do you build these new dorms?
Well, as a former resident of Fisher Hall, I can reflect a little bit of how they might have evolved over time. Yeah. But as you know, there probably isn't anything more important in our DNA is our on-campus residential life commitment. The relationships and the spiritual formation that occurs inside the halls and among halls is peerless in higher education. It is something that we're very mindful of. We work very closely with student affairs, as you noted, to think about the program, the elements that go into each hall. I think what sizably is different about the halls of today as opposed to our era is the opportunity to introduce more community building space. So we actually have dedicated lounges, not just for study, but for socializing. Each hall has a living room, if you will, but also we're embedding that kind of interaction space in each section. we've actually begun to build halls with wider corridors, particularly in the men's halls, because we know this turns into the soccer pitch or the football field and the hockey rink sort of in the midst of an academic year here. We've been purposeful to keeping the same tradition, meaning we work in sections. Sections share things like restrooms and bathrooms, et cetera, and those social spaces. Again, very unique model, not going to a suites model. Our students ask us to keep it that way.
Yeah, and would it be fair to say that what you're trying to do in this model is to get the students out of their rooms and into community? And that's also why we just have 2 dining halls, to get them out and congregate with others in different dorms. And it's been masterful because of the lifelong relationships that are forged, right, through residence life?
Absolutely, and even a small detail as this impacts that. The building code requires us to put a closer on every door to a student room. We get an exception to that because we have state-of-the-art construction, fire protection systems. We also have a 24/7 fire department. It allows us to take that.
What is a closer?
It automatically closes the door, and you have to keep it shut.
Got it.
We want those doors open.
Got it.
We want the students to be able to walk by, say hi to their friends, and step in. Same thing with rectors and assistant rectors and other hall staff, so they can sort of keep an eye on what's going on, but also be available and make sure no one's insular behind that door.
Now, I've had the privilege over the years of visiting some of the Ivy League campuses and other top universities that have old, historic, beautiful buildings, but I'm shocked at how they've not been tended to. The deferred maintenance, they're run down, they seem to be dirty, they have not been kept up. By contrast, you have a restoration plan here, not just for residence halls, but other buildings on campus. Can you talk about how that fits into the master plan?
Yeah, sure. The idea of deferred maintenance has been in higher education for at least the last 30 years, headline grabbing in many ways for the point you've made. I think it was probably 15 years ago, the stewardship committee of the board in one of our regular meetings brought the subject up and said, while we're planning the growth of campus, what are we going to do about the reinvestment so that Notre Dame avoids this incredible deficit that you never get out of?
Right.
And so we teamed with the finance division and started estimating what it would take to keep Notre Dame current to a very good level of construction across the board, and built an endowment over time that spins off enough revenue every year that we are able to invest wisely and properly in building systems, envelope. We want to keep the water out. We keep them safe. Update HVAC systems, the interior finishes, everything you think about in our buildings and the infrastructure are kept current to a level. Now, there's some buildings that will intentionally sort of keep at a certain level because we know in time we'll retire them.
Right. So it used to be that you did all this work over the summer, and now you've been taking a residence hall each year offline in going right down to the studs and changing the HVAC system and the pipes that might be over 100 years old and everything. Has that been, what are some of the dorms that you've done, and how have the students received the old dorm that they were in, and then a year later, the new dorm that they moved back into?
A good example of that is just now the reopened Greenfields Hall, a bastion on the South Quad, a hallmark hall that had really great challenges, like the other halls on that quad, in getting people in the building from an accessibility standpoint. The buildings in that era, in the 30s, an architect's sort of whim, I guess, was to put them at half level, so you're greeted with steps at every entrance.
Into the door,
We solved that with a gently sloped ramp up to the front door, and we'll continue that model on. The feedback from the students so far has been tremendous. Last year, we, of course, reopened Alumni Hall. We built a new living room in the courtyard because they did not have community space in that hall. Just to huge feedback, positive feedback from our students, but also our alums who come back and visit those halls.
And what dorm are you working on this year?
We're actually taking a couple of years off because we need the beds for the construction of Fisher and Pangborn.
Got it.
2 halls, or the reconstruction, a replacement of those, 2 halls at the same time.
Got it. Fantastic. So One of the new buildings that just opened up earlier this year, roughly at the beginning of the year, is the majestic, beautiful Raclin Murphy Museum of Art. I know there's been a lot of talk about building and being really purposeful around an arts gateway at the interface with Eddy Street, something that welcomes in the community to the arts, as well as, of course, our students, faculty, and staff. Can you tell us a little bit more about that arts gateway?
Sure. I think it was a move made really first by Monk at Malloy, as he was president. As he was very mindful of where to place the Performing Arts Center, the DeBarlow Performing Arts Center, at that gateway. Yeah, we hadn't changed the roads yet, but he really had a vision of really opening up the south end of campus to the community. I'm old enough, being a South Bend resident, I recall where those were just fields and woods, et cetera. Never felt welcome to come onto campus unless you're coming to a game, et cetera. Monk really moved us forward to that direction. We're still executing that plan by a placement of Raclin Murphy Museum, plus the Walsh School of Architecture and the old Neal Hall of Music. Those are all gateway buildings that are really exciting for our local folks to come and enjoy incredible performances and lectures.
And there's a plan right now to add another building between the Walsh Hall of Architecture and the Raclin Murphy Museum of Art. Can you say a little bit about what that will focus on?
Sure. We've purposely left space for a new building devoted to the visual arts, so that those folks studying art history, design will have a new home in the midst of this corridor.
Yeah. And what's holding you up from constructing that building?
I think our development people might be a little bit behind there. So I know it's been a great collaboration. We'll get there, but look forward to the day we get to design and build it.
We do have a rather onerous, but I think it's served Notre Dame incredibly well, policy that we have to raise 100% of the building's cost, and we have to get 75% of the cash in hand, and the remaining 25% has to come within 5 years before we can break ground. And this has kept us from having to take operating budget, tuition, room and board, and use that to finance our buildings. In fact, we raised 10% more than the building so that we can get an endowment to help out with the additional operating costs. So I think that's Notre Dame has been way ahead of our peers when it comes to that.
Whenever I'm with my colleagues at other schools and we describe that policy to them, their jaw hits the table because they can't imagine doing that, but yet is really proven providence to us, and we're blessed by it.
All right, here's a question. I'm going to throw you for a loop here. You know, your wonderful wife, Pam, you mentioned this, and you care so much about this campus. I mean, you from the landscaping to the renovations to the new buildings. How attentive would you say you are to your wife and your own home? Are there any deferred maintenance issues there?
You already know the answer to this question because she's talked to you about it several times. But yeah, I've had a leaky skylight or two that maybe goes a little further unattended than but it's sort of like the shoemaker's kids. They're the last to get the shoes. That's
right. I love to stir that up, as you know, with Pam when we're around.
I really appreciate it every time you do.
She's going to watch this video. All right, so people might not be aware that you also have to be attentive to a lot that goes on beyond the campus itself. And you played a really critical role in helping out with design guidelines for Eddy Street Commons and specifically Notre Dame Avenue. And you came up with guidelines, historic guidelines of what could be built on Notre Dame Avenue. Can you talk a little bit about the role that you and your team have played in the development of the neighborhoods around campus?
Well, as you know, 25 years ago, that neighborhood was really under strife and dominated by absentee landlords who were maintaining some pretty poor facilities, particularly rented to our students. I think Monk recognized the need to start buying some properties, and over time we were able to accumulate enough critical mass with those design guidelines, meaning we want homes that are inspired by a little bit of a sort of mid-American traditional style, and asked for some pioneers to originally come in and sort of seed the ground, if you will. And it took off much more successful than I think anybody imagined. Of course, we're not in that anymore
Right.
because we don't need to. There's a chain reaction
Yeah.
that has gone streets and blocks towards this downtown South Bend, where you have homesteaders that have been there for generations now seeing hope
Yes.
and reinvesting in their properties all at the same time. So it's been quite a transformation.
Yeah. I love how you required that on Notre Dame Avenue, homes had to have a front porch to kind of reflect the history of that neighborhood. No vinyl siding. There were certain materials. It's really turned out, and it's sparked, as you said, private investment throughout that neighborhood that's been extraordinary. So I'm going to throw out a theory here, and you can contest it, but sometimes I'll sit back and think that 100 years from now, when people look at our era of Notre Dame and the contributions that we've made, history may look back and say that the greatest contribution that we had was shutting down, with the help of the city of South Bend, Juniper Road that ran right between the Joy Center and the stadium and dissected much of the campus, closing that down, building a new Twickenham Road further east, and then taking Angela and moving it further south to build that beautiful green space right next to the DeBartolo Performing Arts Space, our Arts Center, the Irish Green as we refer to it. We captured 260 contiguous acres to campus. Is that, I think that there may not be a bigger development than that, but what are your thoughts?
Having lived through it, in the heart of it, I would agree with it more than anything. In fact, I'm often asked which has been my favorite project. It's that, because of all what it set up for the future and what we've lived through. We would not be in this building, in this location, had we not moved Juniper Road. And it was arduous. And actually, 20 years ago, when we were in the midst of it, got a little counsel from Father Ted, who had told me that he and Father Ned had tried generation before to move it, but the city and county fathers just felt like we were sort of the heavy in town, we couldn't do it. But then we started being transparent with our plan, and we showed, using the campus plan, that we want to keep it insular. We want to be walkable. We don't want to sprawl into neighborhoods. And all of a sudden, people started believing us and understanding and trusting us. And next thing you know, it got approved, and we moved on it.
Yeah. Well, another thing people might not know about is the campus of Notre Dame goes far beyond South Bend, Indiana. We have a campus of roughly 8,000 acres in northern Michigan and Wisconsin, and a very acclaimed ecological research site. We have facilities in Rome and in Dublin and in, right on Trafalgar Square in London and in Jerusalem. And so you have a responsibility as well, together with your team, for maintaining and investing in those facilities in the other parts of campus. Can you talk a little bit about that role?
Sure. Again, another blessing in my life, had an opportunity to work on most of those projects, especially in the European locations, and now we're the stewards of them. As you know, I have a small group of 5 colleagues that are based in Rome and in London, and then they, of course, oversee the 2 facilities in Ireland. And we care for them at the same level of scale that we do here.
Right.
They're constantly reviewed, renewed. We maintain, et cetera, make sure they're safe and dry, and they're in excellent condition. In Undrick and Land O'Lakes, Wisconsin, as you referenced. I just brought my team back from a retreat there. We try to go up there annually. One of my favorite places in the world. It's extraordinary, and again, Notre Dame's so lucky to have it.
People have no idea that the largest acreage of our campus actually exists in Michigan, and not in Indiana.
6 times the size of this campus.
Yeah, which is just remarkable. All right, I'm going to put you on the spot. So, what would you say is your favorite older building on campus, and what would you say is your favorite in your 30 years building that you had a hand in constructing, and why?
That's like asking which of my 2 sons I love more, but
this is for entertainment value.
I would say the South Dining Hall. It's such a unique building architecturally, designed by Ralph Adams Cram, a very noted American architect from the early part of the last century, but mainly because of what it means for connecting our students. And I spent a lot of time there, living in Fisher and going over to the Archie building, which became later Bond Hall. But It is just a really unique space. The two beautiful halls. People have had all kinds of weddings and other great celebrations in there besides just the place to feed 3,000 students 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
It's just an extraordinary part of our campus and its tradition. In terms of new buildings.
And you're going to undertake a significant renovation,
yeah,
right?
We're
of
working
the
on that
dining
now.
spaces and all that now.
Yeah, not to certainly to touch, to just maintain the beautiful halls, but really rework the kitchen, the servery.
Got it.
In terms of new buildings, I always say it's the latest building we finished. And in this case, it's Graham Family Hall.
Yeah.
And I think that's particular signature there is it was built at the edge of the new East Quad, and we know it's a gateway building because of so many people living, particularly our grad students, faculty, living and parking to the east. They used the archway we built and designed in that building. Thousands of people a day go through there and get a chance to interact with our students to some extent, but also just it's the sort of finishing piece of that northern leg of the East Quad.
Okay, great. This is going to come as a shock to some people. It certainly does to a lot of us here on campus, but also one of your favorite buildings on campus is old and maybe a little rundown. You got a lot of tape and tar to kind of fix the leaks in the roof, but it's the Steppen Center, the geodesic dome on campus where we used to hold pep rallies back in the day, and still, I understand, gets a lot of use. Tell us what you love about Steppen Center.
Maybe it's a little more romantic, if anything. I'm old enough to remember when it was first opened in the South Bend community, and it was a big deal. It was the largest space anybody had, so every organization had their big annual dinner there.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little Boy Scout. We went over there a couple times, and I was like, this is really cool. Yeah. It also happens to be the view outside my window in the facilities building that I see every day. It's the only building I see, and it's like, I get a little inspiration from Buckminster Fuller, who was the architect that designed the geodesic dome. But in reality, it is still a heavily used building. 450 some odd events, mainly student events a year. It costs us almost nothing to maintain, and it doesn't use air conditioning and barely any heat. And as I often say, when we're done using it, we just hose it down. It's just a workhorse little building. I think it's cute, it fits the building, and it's highly utilized. Yeah,
fantastic. All right, so I do want to say something about your team, if I could. Our team has done a day of service each August, and usually we've gone into the community and worked with different nonprofits. And this year we took a little turn. We went and helped to clean the rooms to get the dorms ready. We worked with a landscaping crew. We picked up garbage with your team out on 933. And I just have to tell you, and I said this to many of your teammates, they may be the best teams on campus. People come back and they look at the beauty of this campus, the care that has been put into it, the collegiate Gothic consistency to the architecture of our buildings for the most part. And all of this, you just have an absolutely amazing and very devoted group of people.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for that day of volunteer. It meant a lot. It was not a token thing. Our teams really appreciated it, but particularly about your comments about my entire group. It is a group of stewards who deeply love and care for this place. They come to work ready to work, and they know the mission. And we're blessed really to have them, and for me to call them colleagues.
All right, one final question. And you've been at this for a long time, 30 years. And so what still gets you up in the morning? What excites you about looking to the future of this campus?
I love what I do. I love to be here early in the mornings. If I'm not at my chair by 6:45, I feel like I'm already behind the rest of the day. The campus is quiet then, and most of the year sun hasn't risen. But it's a time to reflect and plan the day, but also just count my blessings. Yeah. This is an incredible place. You know it. We've traveled enough to see beautiful campus as well, but there's something unique about Notre Dame, particularly with the light in the dome. This is a place of love. Mm-hmm. It's love of mission, it's love for one another, it's love of place. Mm-hmm. It drives us all, and you see it in the people. And every visitor that I know have come here We've held conferences. I've had a lot of guests, friends here, as we all have. They all remark about the beauty of the people and the place and how well they were treated. And I couldn't be happier and more grateful to be a part of it.
Well, you're the chief steward of that, and you carry out your responsibilities with impeccable integrity, just a core goodness and a deep a sense of service to others and to this campus, and you embrace the holiness, the sacred of this place as well as anybody I know, and so thank you for your leadership and service. You don't always realize it, but it humbles and inspires those of us who work with you and asks us to kind of dig down a little bit deeper and do better. So we always close these programs. We invite our viewers to join us in a prayer to Our Lady, who sits atop the dome and watches over and guides us every step of the way. So please join in with us. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Take care. God bless. Go Irish. And thanks again, Doug.
Thank you, Lou.
Yeah, great work.
It's an honor.